Hello, my name is Maddie Ceglecki, and this is my final reflection project for my UF 100 class, Navigating Identity. So I'm going to be talking about the 12 topics that we had within our class, referencing the dodecahedron that we used to exemplify all of the lessons. So the first section I'm going to be talking about is the ULOs, which are the university learning outcomes that were indicated by the class and the processing of what we hoped what we would take away from the class. So the first one I'm going to be talking about is learning about teamwork. So how we learned about teamwork was creating a team that had a purpose of best working together, a leader, someone to keep us in check, someone who would speak for us, so on and so forth. Teams are asked to meet and work once a week together to come up with the best ideas for our assignments. We had to learn to work together, gather sources, ideas, and communicate effectively with one another. The second one I'm going to be talking about is critical inquiry. This was to teach us how to discuss and evaluate bigger topics such as like how we see ourselves and how we see the world and other identities that relate to not only us but the world as well. We had to answer questions each session and come up with answers in which were personalized to us and our views, and how we were relating these views to the beginning of our class, to the end of our class, and how they were changing. And then the second one I'm going to talk about, our third ULL was oral communication, and the purpose of this was to teach us how to become comfortable with public speaking. Every class, we would introduce ourselves and say something about ourselves, like who we would go back and meet within history or something along those lines, just to make it clear about who we were and what we were interested in. The final one was the ULO about innovation, and this was included in the projects by giving us different types of projects, including papers, videos, as well as coming together as a team to present information effectively and differently each time. The second study was that of case studies and how we related 4 different identities into our own lives. The first one was that of the university identity. If we were to identify as a Bronco, whether we identified it with groups within the school as well as subcultures and activities like that. We went even further and started identifying with the Basque culture to show that there is a cultural identity that we can go into. We went to the Basque Walk in Boise, and we started to learn about how they became to incorporate within the United States. The third case study that we learned about was that of America and how we identify as Americans, what our world sees Americans as, and we even went to a naturalization ceremony to understand more of why people want to be Americans sometimes. The final case study was that of ourselves, to self-evaluate ourselves and our different personality types and how we identify in larger groups as well within ourselves in smaller groups like that of our family. The final section of the dodecahedron that I'm going to talk about is the virtues section, and this was the topics of discussing that of living a life versus earning a life. So the first topic of that is the career section, and this was teaching us to not only follow what we were interested in, but what we love to do and also what we were good at. We had to take all of these into consideration in the idea of picking a career, as well as practicing that of professional job interviews, what would be successful versus unsuccessful. Alright, and then the second one I'm going to move into is that of character, and this was something that wasn't really left up to being taught to us, but the idea of how we identify, and we use this section to evaluate ourselves as what kind of people we were. We related these into that of David Brooks' book, The Road to Character, and he came and spoke to us about the ideas of what a good person is, how we see and communicate with other people. And the final one, and this one is the section that I most took away from this class, that most related into my own studies and my own life, was that of the virtues of a learner. This was discussing the differences between a student and a learner. The reason that I took away from this most from the class is because it related to me in the sense that you can't simply go to a class, memorize the topic, take a test, and you're done. You have to be able to see the value in each topic that you're being presented with, and you have to keep up on your studies, and you have to keep pushing yourself, even when you don't want to be a part of it. Even when you feel lazy, even when you're having a rough day, you have to be able to push through and take solitude and take something away from what you are being given and what you are being presented with. You have to ask questions, not simply just memorize them. You have to be able to keep using this information and keep using it to discuss and to learn from it. I hope that this video reflection was clear, concise, and was able to give you a sum up of what University Foundations is all about. You have to really be a part of the class and be willing to understand and to take reflection in the topics overall, but I definitely would suggest this class. It helped me evaluate a lot in my own life, especially in the topic of being a learner, because I think this will definitely stick with me in my later studies of how important it is to really take value in the education I'm being presented with.